Twisted terrors, now your hosts on board.
What is going on, horror fanatics? Zomboy here. You're watching another episode of Twisted Terrors. On this episode, we're going to be talking about 2025's VHS Halloween. This movie is rated R. IMDb has this one rated 5.7 out of 10. Letterboxd has this one rated as 2.9 out of 5. So we'll jump right in. This movie consists of 5 short stories and a wraparound. If you've seen any of the other VHS movies, it is very much like those ones. The tagline is, a collection of Halloween-themed videotapes unleashes a series of twisted, blood-soaked tales, turning trick-or-treat into a struggle for survival. The first story in this movie is called Coochie Coochie Coo. It is directed by Anna Sluyter. This story is about 2 high school graduate girls. They're trick-or-treating even though they're too old to be trick-or-treating, but they're doing it one last time, but they are wreaking some havoc. They're stealing kids' candy. They end up going to one house, knocking on the door, but no one answers. As they're getting ready to leave, the door opens and a hand comes out with a voice. It's Coochie Coochie Coo. And the girls end up going in the house, and the door slams, trapping them inside. The inside of this house is very dilapidated. You can tell no one lives there. These girls are haunted by a giant man baby in this house. They end up finding a girl strapped to a chair, being forced fed milk through a funnel and straw. They're fighting to untie her when they run into a girl that they recognize as a girl that went missing from the Halloween the prior year, and they're trying to talk with her until she starts screaming mommy, and then you're introduced to the mommy character, and they end up remembering a story. They remember someone called Mommy that comes every year on Halloween to take the 2 old, greedy, and stupid enough kids to go trick-or-treating, and they realize they are now trapped inside of her house. Mommy ends up breaking into the room. You get to see her. She's this disgusting, large, skinny woman. The front of her shirt is open, exposing all 6 of her breasts that are dripping milk all over the place. Very disgusting. She ends up grabbing one of the girls and squeezing her so tight she breaks her ribs. They're hiding from Mommy, but Mommy starts singing a lullaby, which causes the girl with the broken ribs to fall asleep. So Mommy grabs her and takes her away. While the last girl is trying to find her, she finds her laying on Mommy's lap with big fat cheeks, just like the man baby. And so the girl gives up and joins her. And that's the end of that story. Next story in this movie is called Ut Supra Sic Infra. This one's directed by Paco Plaza. You might recognize that name from the director of the Rec 1, 2, and 3 movie series. This movie is a Spanish film all about a man is being interrogated by the police about a bunch of deaths that he says he did. He confessed to doing it. The police don't believe him. They think that the deaths were too brutal for one person to do. So they end up telling him to bring back his memory. They're going to take him back to the scene. This one's pretty cool because it's showing you what's happening now, but it also cuts back to basically a bunch of kids. They're on Halloween night after a Halloween party. They're all dressed up and they decide to go break into a house and explore this house. So the police end up bringing him back to this house, asked him, you know, where did you park? How did you get in? And so he's walking them through everything, which takes them to this secret, round, tall room in this house where it cuts to the kids. They go in this room. And in this room, in the very center, there's a pillar with a phone, and there's writing all over the walls. One of the girl explains this house used to be owned by a strong medium And that's why they had to go there on Halloween, because that's when the house is at its most powerful time. And the sole survivor of this massacre ends up reading the, I'm guessing, Latin on the walls, which causes the phone to ring in the center of the room. And he answers, and then when he answers the phone, he ends up getting possessed. The door slams shut as everyone starts to float up into the air. Cuts to the police. The police are in the same round room, asking him what happened first. He tells them that he read the passage on the wall, so they tell him to read it again. And this is right after they set up the phone in the center of the room, but they explain to him it's okay because this phone has no cords, so there's no way it can ring. They just did it so the scene was the same. So he ends up reading the passage on the wall, and after he reads, the phone rings, and one of the police ends up answering. Eric gets possessed again, and all the police start floating up to into the room as you see Eric walks out of the door, shutting it, as the police go all the way up to the ceiling. They're laying on the ceiling, and another door opens on the ceiling, but now Eric's walking on the ceiling upside down, which is a really cool scene. It reminded me of As Above, So Below a little bit, and I enjoy this one. And then you get to watch as Eric goes cop to cop, ripping their eyeballs out, which is exactly what happened to the kids. They found their bodies with all their bones broken and their eyes missing. As Eric's all done taking their eyes out, all the bodies one by one fall all the way to the floor, breaking all the bones yet again. And that is the end of that story. The next one is called Fun Sized. It's directed by Casper Kelly. This one is a pretty fun one and gory. Again, this is about a bunch of older seniors in high school, or maybe freshmen in college. They just got done at a Halloween party, and they decide to go trick-or-treating to get some candy. They end up going to a house. They find a bowl outside that says "Take only one," and the first guy reaches in and realizes this bowl is full of candy that they've never heard of before. And the very first one he opens, he's making all these jokes because it looks like a male genitalia, and he ends up taking a bite, getting cream all over his face, so you can see the joke there. And he's looking through the bowl and trying to Google these candies, and he can't find anything. And then he ends up reaching in to grab a second one when a hand comes out of the bowl and grabs his hand. And as the camera pulls back, you can see there's nothing under the table, as his entire body gets sucked into this bowl, and his friend is grabbing onto him trying to save him, and he gets sucked in the bowl. The others go running, but also get sucked in the bowl. They end up finding themselves in what looks like the back rooms, this dark parking lot, underground garage-like area. They are haunted by this mascot creature that keeps on saying fun-sized. They end up finding an exit door, but it's locked with a key, so they're looking all over for the key to get out of this exit door. One of the guys ends up finding a key, but gets locked to a conveyor belt and sucked into a machine. And that's when they quickly realize this machine is cutting him into little pieces as body parts are flying around. And then he gets dipped in chocolate and caramel and then packaged. And you find out that he is now unusual candies that have been dipped in chocolate. So now you know what was in the bowl, including his parts, if you know what I mean. They're in a bag now. So this scene's great. It's super gruesome. There's blood all over the place. You know, the machine is very like Dr. Seuss style, large. You know, it was pretty fun. Two of the characters are supposed to get married, and it is so annoying. The guy just keeps on calling her fiance through the whole thing, and it is super annoying. And the girl quickly realizes she made a mistake saying yes. And the whole episode, she's trying to figure out how she's going to tell him that she no longer wants to marry him. And so everyone's dying. One of the girls, she gets taken by the mascot, and when they find her, she's got a tube inserted in her back end, and she is being filled with candy until her head explodes. Oh man, the death scenes in this are great. And they find themselves crawling into a air duct, which they quickly realize is also a conveyor belt sucking them into a machine, as he decides he doesn't want to die without getting married to her. So he proposes and starts doing the marriage ritual, and she says that she doesn't. That's how she tells him as he's getting sucked into a machine and dying. She tells him she doesn't want to get married any longer. This poor guy. She could at least lied to him. But she ends up finding a hatch, crawls out, and she realizes she's outside now. But she ends up turning around, and there's the mascot, and he kills her. And the next scene is a bunch of kids looking in the bowl at the unusual candy, and a boy takes two and gets sucked into the bowl. That's the end of Fun Sized. The next one is Kid Print, and talk about a mood change. This one, it goes from funny, haha, to pretty disturbing. This one's about a town. They have a bunch of missing children. One by one, the children have been going missing. So this guy that owns a electronics store decided to start up a new campaign called Kid Print, where he takes video interviewing all the kids in town. That way, if someone goes missing, there is a tape of everything about them, as opposed to just the police looking at a picture. So they think this might help the kids being found. So one by one, he's videotaping everyone in town. This takes place on Halloween night as well. And this guy's doing a good deed. Nobody wants to send their kids out to go trick-or-treating. So they decide, the police end up doing kind of like a trunk or treat thing, where they're going to hand out candy so there's a safe place for kids to go. And of course, that night, a kid goes missing. So the police ask the store owner to go back to his store to collect the tape of the missing child so they can get the police looking at it right away. When he goes back to his store, he goes into the back room, and where the guy that edits all the videos, his little station, all the TVs are playing videos of children getting tortured. And he gets sick watching these videos and shuts them off. And then in the background, you can hear screaming. So he follows the screaming, ends up he finds the missing child and his coworker who edits all the videos, and he is wearing a skin mask that he cut the skin off of a younger child. He's wearing it on his face as a Halloween costume. Of course, his employee ends up hurting him really bad, smashes his leg, and brings him to another room where there's another child that's missing his face, and the kids think he's in on it, so they end up bludgeoning him with a hammer and stabbing him to death because they think the store owner is involved in it. And the end of this story is the news interviewing the killer, asking him if he knew anything about the guy that owned the store and how twisted he was. So now the whole town thinks the store owner had abducted all those children, when it was the coworker who got off scot-free. But in the interview, he tells them he's going to continue Kid Print because of how important it is. And that is the end of that one, which it is twisted. I mean, to go from haha to torturing and cutting up children, it's twisted. It's a little bit more twisted than any of the other VHSs I've seen. The last one is called Home Haunt. This one is directed by Michelin Pitt Norman and R.H. Norman. This one is about a father and son they do a haunted house every year for Halloween, and it shows all these VHS tapes of him and his boy is growing up every year. They're doing this together, and now the boy is in high school and he doesn't think it's cool anymore, and so he's telling his dad he's not going to do it anymore because he just gets picked on all the time at school for being the dorky Halloween kid. Well, the parents talk the kid into doing it one last time for the dad because the dad really wants to go all out. So the dad builds this giant haunt. They go to a thrift store to get odds and ends for the haunt, where the dad comes across a record in a back room, and of course he puts it in his bag. He leaves money on the counter. The first night, Halloween, the opening of the home haunt, he brings people in and he starts playing the record. And of course he didn't know, but this record brings on the dead to basically kill everybody. So everything in his haunt starts coming to life. They end up rushing into a cemetery scene, which is way bigger than he built and looks very real, and they're attacked by ghosts. A guy gets killed right away in a very disgusting manner, blood going all over the place, and of course there's children in here as well, so kids are dying as they're going room to room, and every room someone's getting slaughtered by a ghost, a witch, an executioner. I mean, there's some cool scenes in this one, and it's very fun. The witch one is really neat because the witch gets out of the haunt and you get this really cool scene where she takes the camera and you get this POV shot of the witch flying on her broom, grabbing children, decapitating them, and blood flying all over the place. She ends up dropping the camera, which falls to the ground right in front of the haunt as this giant creature starts coming out of the haunt, and that's where this one ends. And then you've got the wraparound. The wraparound is just a bunch of short clips of a story that goes throughout between every single one. This one is called Diet Phantasma, and it is a group that has basically taken a poltergeist and they have infused it into a soda. First they start testing it on convicts, and every single time someone dies a horrendous death after opening the can. Every time it just gets worse and worse. They bring kids in, they're dying, people are getting sucked into the can, people are getting possessed and smashing their head against the wall. And every single time they have to clean this room up just so they can start over. They adjust the formula a little bit. It's a lot of fun. There's not a lot of story to tell. It's just a bunch of deaths in between, but they're kind of funny. That is all the segments of VHS Halloween. And I tell you, I dig this one because it has Halloween vibes beginning to end, which I really like. And the stories are great. I love Home Haunt. I think that's my favorite one. I love Halloween time, and making cool haunts is something I've always been into, and prop building and stuff like that. So this one was pretty neat. Now, I will say, I wasn't a huge fan of the son. He is rude and annoying, and it's tough to root for him at all. You're at one point just going to be like, oh, I kind of hope he dies, but it is what it is. The practical effects in these are great. The fun-sized one is a blast to watch. I like the mascot creature. The vibe of this is great. The scene we're in the back rooms is a lot of fun. It's just these directors got to kind of cut loose, make something gory that is fun to watch, and I highly enjoy that. I will say, Coochie Coochie Coo one, that one gave me some serious barbarian vibes when it comes to especially the bad mother character, especially with all like the milk going on in this one. It really reminded me of that. But I will say, I think the VHS Halloween is my favorite out of the series now. It's something I'm going to add to my Halloween watch list just because the vibe is there in pretty much all of them. It's not something where it's just Halloween time and so they're going to do a story. Each one is very trick-or-treat oriented, or it's just got this great Halloween vibe to it. But I highly recommend this one. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. I think it's streaming on Shudder. It's just something you can kind of kick back and watch and enjoy the gore and the fun of it. So Zomboy says go watch it. Tell me what you think down in the comments down below. And what are some other ideas of VHS movies? You know, there's been Aliens, there's been Ghosts, there's been Halloween. What's some other ideas you think would be cool for a VHS movie? I hope this is something every year they come out with a cool VHS movie. I love the vibe of them. You know, it's a very much found footage style, grainy VHS feel, and I dig that. It's a neat concept. So Zomboy says check it out. I appreciate watching this video. I'll see you on the next one. See you later.